when it comes to circular economy. So, so AI has a very important role. And now I come to the solution adaptability, which was the original question to us. So fortunately, in our organization, AI is helping us a lot. So one is in every city we have dustbins. So we have AI models which predicts level of dustbins. Based on the fill level, we send vehicles to empty those bins, and it saves not only fuel, but it also saves the incidents where we have places which becomes, instead of dustbins, waste pile. That is number one. Number two, we have a mechanism during collection. We send notification to our citizens. So before collecting their waste, they get a notification or a jingle, Swachh Bharat Ka Irada hai, on their mobile phone, and they can keep their waste outside. So they don't. So in that case, they are always informed. So they know when their vehicle is about to come, how they can send their waste into the vehicles. And if I talk about adaptability, so now 36 municipal corporations are using our solution and citizens are using our solution. So this is about us.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. Rohan san, I'm going to bounce that from what we heard from Vedant and Abhishek. I think as startups, they have a perspective to how they could serve the space with that innovation. But from your position as part of digital enterprise for Maruti, you would see a number of such innovations that you are attempting to work with, attempting to embed within your own operations, attempt to possibly take to market jointly. Two thoughts that I want to ask from you. As you've seen these innovations, where have you seen opportunities where they didn't exist for Maruti Suzuki or your own perspective until yesterday? So almost like saying, I couldn't have done this without an AI enabled perspective until yesterday. Or here is how I could do this, and this is a faster, better, cheaper, more effective way of that effort to decarbonization, or that effort to a greener supply chain or greener manufacturing that we aspire to.
Hi, thanks Ganesh-san. This mic is working. Thanks Abhishek. So I represent an organization called as Maruti Suzuki India Limited. We make cars. बाहर जो traffic jam है थोड़ा सा हमारी वजह से भी है. So pleasure to be here. I'm not sure whether all of you are aware that we also engage with startups. Of course, other than making cars, we have multiple startup programs through which we collaborate with startups, right from seed stage to even pre-series A, series A startups. And one of our very strong partners is NSR Cell, which Ganesh-san is heading, and we are very proud to partner with them. So what we have seen over the years is technology has no boundaries, and technology has no owners. As a legacy player in the Indian market for the last 42 years, we cannot claim ownership of every new technology which is going to hit the road tomorrow. So challengers, which are the startups, are actually making a lot of not only noise but also coming out with some novel concepts which are compelling large OEMs like Maruti Suzuki to adopt and change very fast. So that is one of the primary reasons that Maruti said, okay, let us collaborate with startups. The question which you asked, are there any gaps which startups are able to fulfill, which Maruti could not do it on their own? Like if you were to ask me about AI, when we started this program in 2019, we hardly had any data science engineers in Maruti Suzuki. We did not have any AI engineers in Maruti Suzuki. Handful of them, or not even more than 5, 6. Did we have anyone who understood quantum computing? Answer is no. We heard about the concept, but no use cases to test that technology. Even a technology like AR and VR, I mean, Facebook changed its name to Meta, but before that, we didn't have people to experiment with that kind of technology. So one of the quick wins for us was to collaborate with startups, because they were bringing in the fresh perspective, fresh energy, and not only challenging the dominant players in the market, but also at the same time, I believe they were looking for support from large corporates as well, because to validate what they have built in their own labs. And we saw the bright talent in India from the premier institutes like IITs. They were not taking corporate jobs. They wanted to start something on their own. So that became like a natural collaboration, a natural partnership for us to collaborate with startups. And the use cases which we could not run in-house became much better to run with startups. And we only do paid pilots. So we used to run paid pilots with these startups. And what we found was not only we were successful in testing those technologies, but the cost at which we were able to scale them were like 1/10 and at times 1/20th of the price which large tech firms would charge us. So that's the kind of economics and mathematics which enabled us to pursue this startup engagement for the last 6 years now. And so far 6,000 plus startups we have screened, 200 engagements are going on, 32 startups have now become our tier 1 partners. Business, I think almost more than 200 crore plus given to these 32 companies in the last six years. So that's the kind of gap which they are able to fulfill for Maruti Suzuki, and this partnership has been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Rohan sir. Vishaka ma'am, Rohan San's perspective is the role of startups and how young innovation, young maybe by age, but young more by tenure in adoption within a large corporate enterprise or an environment ecosystem, has or is driving a particular perspective to change. You would have seen it probably from a different perspective, which is, in my mind, I'm thinking the role of EPR, the role of ESG practices and policy, and how they have enabled change or driven decarbonization initiatives or circularity initiatives, not just within Wipro as a company, but also from a larger global perspective. You're a large global organization with offices, presence across tens of countries. You also engage in enabling your clients and partners to adopt and transform faster. What has been the role of this kind of a policy intervention? Whereas it created boundaries, and I'm going to ask this nicely, whereas this created a headache, where has this accelerated a change you would have wanted to see until yesterday?
Thank you so much, and I'm glad you qualified that we are not young. We are a 8-year-old company with a huge and a wonderful legacy, which we are very proud of. So thanks for that. You know, as Wipro, as all of you would know, 66% of our ownership is actually just devoted to philanthropic initiative. And even if I don't talk about Wipro Foundation, I mean Wipro CSR, but even under the philanthropic initiative, I think all our focus is on sustainability, whether it is with livelihoods, whether it is through education, whether it's healthcare. And I think that is the foundational principle that guides our business overall. And, while you spoke about, clients, and that's a wonderful thing that you said, because as organizations like ours, we believe that unless, decarbonization, sustainability is, deeply integrated with your business strategy, I think it will always remain in the periphery. And therefore, it is as much a responsibility of the organization to, take up thought leadership as much maybe, as policy initiatives of the government. To respond to your specific questions on policy initiatives, it is a great beginning, when you have a policy that is framed by a country which kind of outlines the vision, which outlines some targets. I think it's a wonderful beginning because that gives every organization to kind of build on it. It becomes a reason and a justification for organizations to start thinking about it and set programs. But I think all of us agree that decarbonization is extremely contextual, is sector dependent, and horribly complex. And therefore, for any policy perspective, it has to be multi-stakeholder, but also sectoral guidelines, right? From my experience, and this is not necessarily related to, policies for decarbonization or reducing carbon footprint, but anything that succeeds is typically on collaboration. And it has to be a fine balance between, incentives and punitive measures. And celebrating successes, sharing, best practices, making it available for everybody, I think becomes extremely, extremely critical, whether it's the government who does it or whether, as organizations, we take that ownership, right? When it comes to customers, and as we work with our global customers, I think what defines our engagement with them is understanding or mapping that forces of influence in this decarbonization cycle. Policy is one of them, but that's not all. Beyond policy, there are change levers such as access to alternative fuels, access to renewable energy, which really become important because, when you get down to operations or operational decarbonization, some of these things become critical. If you don't have access to them, then, what are your change levers? But even beyond that, of course, then there are the enablers, and that's where a lot of the technology comes in, including AI. When we look at tech enablers, we are in the AI summit, so needless to say, AI, when we talk about AI, we also know that AI is as good as its data. And therefore, I think data becomes fundamental and critical for any AI to succeed, right? And, in this segment, it's not really general purpose AI, but like I had mentioned, it's sectoral, it's contextual. So there's a lot of work that maybe, will continue to be done here, specifically focused in this area. But, having said that, it is also, let us not undermine technology innovation, process innovation, and engineering innovation. I think that is critical. You need alternate materials, you need process innovation, you need solutions to store carbon in case you can't decarbonize completely. Let's recognize that, it is a long, long journey, right? And I think it's a collection of all these that will actually culminate into, real operational decarbonization and finally, going back the whole circular to the success of a policy.
Ma'am, there are a couple things you mentioned which I took furious notes on, which are, I'd like to say, provocative. And one of them you early on said, we need to look at incentives and we need to look at punitive measures. What do you have in mind?
Well, I was hoping you wouldn't really pick on that one, but I think it's already there. If you look at it, there are standards.
I'll paraphrase myself, right? Very often, through our open innovation, when we look at engaging with corporates to help them in their decarbonization journey, there is an implicit expectation that the cost in some form needs to be borne by, I want to say, a broader society. In the sense, the positive externality of decarbonization within a corporate initiative belongs to a larger community. And therefore, either the costs or the technology adoption or the margin offsets in some form have to be swallowed from outside of a P&L. I don't know if there is an argument to be made that there is justification for positive externality being funded or resourced from an outsider. There is also an argument to be made that this is intrinsic to the product or service being created, which means the cost of carbon is intrinsic to the mic or the pen I'm using. I will pause.
Okay, so let me kind of respond it maybe in a circular manner, and forgive me for that, but I think that perspective is important. When you actually measure the impact of your operations, I think you really need to expand your time and your boundaries, horizon, not just time horizon, but also enterprise horizon. You talked about the cost of this, the carbon cost of this, this particular device that we are using. But when you look at the whole value chain of it, it extends so much beyond a single organization. It extends so much also beyond, that instant of time, that as organization and as society, we have to find a way to kind of, measure it and set realistic targets. I think, you know, for any success, the realistic target is extremely, extremely critical. I spoke about business, I spoke about tech innovation. I think one point that I missed is about business innovation. I think, you know, just our approach to measuring success of an enterprise would be very important. Because, you know, if I am plowing back my profits for this, which does not necessarily have an immediate return, I'm going to suffer as a business. So I think there is, therefore, you know, that I might be punished by the markets. So therefore, what do I do? And that's where the externalities of, you know, support, incentives, or you know, targets, or whatever it is. And let me tell you that I would be fooling everybody if I say that I might have an answer. I don't. I only am thinking like all of us are and wondering, you know, what the future holds for us.
Thank you. I think that makes sense. Sapna ma'am, I'm going to bounce off from what Vishaka ma'am told us. She started off by also saying the role of philanthropy in creating the kind of change we want to see. And from your perspective, also as part of a very large global company, very passionate about the space of decarbonization, what's been your experience in CSR or philanthropic capital? As in my mind, I'm imagining this as seed capital, as sort of the early risk capital to creating an innovation that might scale. It has, I imagine, it has a plowback benefit, just the nature of your own business chassis. You must have had experience with this. You must have grappled with this.
Thank you, Ganesh. So I think for those who don't know the company in the room, I'd just quickly like to introduce the company. Alstom is a French multinational that builds trains. So some of the problems that Rohan sir's cars create, we help solve. Sorry, Rohan, you gave me an opening into that, so you can't blame me. We build metro systems. I hope most of you all actually used and avoided the traffic outside by using the Delhi Metro, which is an Alstom-built train. We're also very proud to say that most of the trains and the metro systems in the country have something that comes from us. Now, I think sustainability as a concept is core to the company because the product itself is sustainable, right? I think if you look at all transport modes, whether that's air, road, rail by far is the most sustainable in terms of its emissions profile, right? That said, I think the adoption and the usage of rail, even in well-developed countries and continents like Europe that have a very, very well-developed rail infrastructure, continues to remain very, very low in percentage terms, right? So we need to massively kind of advocate for that modal shift to rail to happen to actually reduce emissions. I think with just that as background, coming back to Ganesh's original questions, right? Now, there are a few things that as a company we are trying to do. You know, number one, driven because the product itself is sustainable, we're trying to see how we can make it more sustainable, right? So a number of things that my esteemed peers have already spoken about in terms of the kind of materials we use, the kind of alternate fuels that are used. With the first company that actually has a hydrogen train in operation in Germany. You know, like all of those practices, including circularity, and I'm sure we'll speak more on that, I think, through the panel. The company is kind of doing R&D and all of that to see how it can improve its sustainability profile. Now, that said, I think the problems are humongous, and we would like to focus on what we believe we are the best at, which is rail technology, right? Everything else that kind of accelerates and improves outcomes, and I think AI as a technology, I think is helping us do exactly that. It's helping us improve outcomes, and that's what we need to demonstrate to our customers to be able to actually use AI at scale across rail. And that's somewhere where startups come much to, like similar to what Rohan said. You know, we have a program running with NSRCL as well to see how startups that are currently working, because I think what I've seen specifically in the mobility ecosystem actually is that most of the startups today are actually innovating, you know, especially when it comes to innovating for decarbonization or for circularity. They're usually doing that keeping EVs in mind or cars in mind. You know, we're not really innovating at scale for rail, and I guess where our interventions go to is that a lot of the innovations that are actually being thought of for rail could very easily be applied to mass transit, right? Including the materials, the kind of chairs that we build, the handles that we use, The plastic, end of life recycling, we use a lot of components in our trains, you know, how those components are built. So yes, we are looking at working, to your point, Ganesh, we are looking at working with the startup ecosystem to see how we can bring in some of these ancillary technologies and actually improve outcomes and demonstrate outcomes faster to our customers.
Thank you. I'm going to come back on a couple things you said there. I'm going to just spin it till I get a thought from Tebjeet sir because of a few things that we just spoke about. So one of the things that worries me is this is a conversation on AI and how AI can help in decarbonization. Increasingly, it is one of the largest consumers of energy. And somewhere in my mind, that seems like a very peculiar conflict, right? Unless you say I'm going to use fire to fight fire, it sounds like a very peculiar circular logic to say I'm going to generate energy to fight, to reduce energy and carbonization. And energy is the largest producer of greenhouse gases, and then followed by mass transportation, transportation in general, and then probably agriculture, urbanization, maybe in that order. How should we imagine this? Right? As each of us think about economic progress, and each of us think about economic progress in a manner that we are decarbonizing or have a circularity-driven approach to, I want to say, our livelihoods, but it might sound very sort of metaphysical. How should we think about this? And that cuts across, am I a startup? Am I a corporate? Am I a consumer, a citizen? How should we be thinking about this?
Thanks. Thanks, Ganesh. Wonderful question. The one word that, while coming to this place, I was looking at it, that means in the streets, the government has put up boards, all inclusive. So what we have to think about, the premise with which AI should be promoted in the context of India should be all inclusive, number one. Number two, whether it is the Maruti or the Alstom, or for that matter, Wipro computers or anything, everything needs energy. So we have to see how do we decarbonize the energy and whether AI can help us in decarbonizing the energy. Now AI is definitely needed for growth, and to run the AI, you need large amount of energy. Just to give a perspective to it, the data says that by 2030 globally, 1700 billion units of electricity would be required. And to put that into perspective, 1700 billion units of energy is consumed currently in India. So the total amount of electricity that is getting consumed in India annually will be the requirement for AI, only for AI, running the AI models in 2030 globally. For India, we need about 30 gigawatt of energy by 2030 just for running AI-based data centers. Now, how much is 30 gigawatt? Roughly around 45 gigawatt is the total hydropower capacity in India. 50 gigawatt is the wind power capacity in India. So you can say that 2/3 of the total hydropower capacity will be required just to run the AI models. I'm just trying to say that the amount of energy that it is going to consume. Now, having said that, let's turn to how AI can help in reducing that energy consumption and how it can help us in decarbonization of our electricity grid. Now, we are gradually moving towards a more renewable grid. We all know solar and wind are intermittent, so it's a variable renewable energy that will be needed. A human way of computation cannot help in understanding the variability and to know what is going to happen after, say, 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever, after one day. Now, there are AI models now which can predict the solar radiation, whether it is going to decrease or increase or whatever, or the wind speed, whether it is going to increase or decrease in the next, say, after 2 hours or 3 hours or maybe 24 hours later. All these things have to be done by AI. Unless we have AI, we cannot just predict all those models. So the prediction have to done using AI models. Now that is on the supply side. On the demand side, AI can help us in better demand management. You have large hospitals, large institutes, large offices. The AI can actually understand what, depending on the weather pattern, whether all the assists should remain on or we can switch off few. So it can predict all these things instead of manually doing all those things, or through automation, post-event doing those things. It can do it in advance. Help you reducing demand side management, in demand side management, reducing the energy consumption also. So both on the supply side and on the demand side, it can do wonderful work. Now that's the one part of the story. Now the first part of the story that I started, that it needs huge energy consumption to do all these things. So you use a chat GPT prompt, it consumes huge amount of energy. You might think that, okay, in 5 seconds I'm getting my answer, but the amount of energy that is consuming to give you that answer is humongous. Now, how do you decarbonize the infrastructure that we are going to create for the AI? And that's the critical question for a country like India. Because debates are going on whether we have, if AI consumes so much of energy, and if our manufacturing also needs a lot of energy, because we are only 20% of our energy is electricity. And if we have to increase that to 40%, that's the government target, then we need a huge amount of electricity. And if we divert that to AI, then what will happen to our manufacturing? That's a big debate that is going on, and we have to find an answer. As a think tank, as a person representing a think tank, who have been working in the think tank sector for the last many, many years, my job is to see that how do we find those answers and reach out to the government. So I would end with saying that AI can do wonderful things. It can make our life easier. It can make things much better, because it can, but at the same time, we have to see that how we make infrastructure that is required for AI processes decarbonized. Just giving an example, for example, if you are to select a site, say a data center site for an AI, should I have the site in Bangalore or Mumbai or Delhi or some place where it is already a hot climate? AI will produce lot of heat. Now, if you produce lot of heat, the local environment will, the temperature will be more than the ambient, in the average temperature. You need more AC, and that becomes a vicious cycle. Now, I can't allow a vicious cycle to be created out of an AI. I have to create a virtuous cycle. So my site location, choice of site, government need to regulate that. Government might give incentives, tax incentives. A lot of these AI companies will come, but there are a lot of other things that the government has to do to see that AI is not creating a problem instead of solving the problem. So that's what I say, all-inclusive models, where you have to take care of not just the AI models, but also of everything around your environment. Thank you.
Tabjit sir, I'm going to stick with you. I mean, just as a corollary, one reason why there is some effort in trying to see if we can put data centers in space is because it reduces the power and cooling requirement, right? Power from solar and cooling because it's above the ozone layer and so on. But we'll see if that happens. Our challenge to what you said, maybe, sir, is we are a coal country, right? 70% of our energy still comes from coal. In fact, the prediction is our coal requirements for energy will peak in 2035, which is, we are still accelerating and increasing our consumption of coal for the energy requirements that we currently have. And that requirement is going to go up over the next 10 years before it maybe peaks and plateaus down. If we have to shrink that or migrate that adoption curve out, you spoke about the supply side and demand side. We are attempting the supply side, which is renewable energy, circularity that Sapna ma'am is talking about, and so on. What can we do to get inspired by what Bishakha ma'am said? What are the incentives and, if I may, punitive measures for demand side? How can we encourage the largest consumers of energy, which is energy infrastructure themselves, technology now, mass transportation, urbanization, to flip the grid? Is there a way to, in my mind, is there a way to create larger supply side, whether it is variable or static, by influencing the demand side?
Well, yes, definitely. So just to correct you, the government report says that 2030, in 2045 or beyond that, coal will peak. So it's not 2035 for the simple reason that that we are, as I said, we are using 1700 billion units of electricity now. Our consumption will increase to about 4000 billion units.
Right.
Out of that, in percentage terms, it will reduce, the coal will reduce, but in absolute terms, steel will be consuming roughly around 1 billion tons of coal for production of, for electricity
And just to
generation.
correct, I'm not saying it in a negative man. We need that energy for the pace at which the economy is growing
Yes.
and mechanizing.
Yes,
So it is almost a mandatory requirement for our economic progress.
absolutely. So for us, electricity demand is important. For a country like India, energy security, energy demand, meeting the energy demand, aspirational load, these are important matters than environmental sustainability. I'm being from the environment, I'm saying that. So we cannot set our context like the Western countries. We have to set our own context. Now coming back to your question, yes, absolutely. I think large consumers can flip to renewable energy. Large consumer nuclear bill has just been passed. I'm sure that some of the large corporates with private sector now being allowed to enter the nuclear sector, some of the big corporates will start investing. Small modular reactors, which there are only 2 operational reactors across the world, but India has started redesigning its safe reactors, the pressurized heavy water reactor, to make it small modular reactor. And I think once that is done, 5 megawatt reactor or 50 megawatt reactor can, and if, of course, policies have to be designed on the land requirement, the water requirement, and other things for these nuclear projects. I'm sure that some of the big corporates, steel industry, cement industry, data center, hydrogen plants, all these things can shift to nuclear, which is a decarbonized fuel. Of course, it has its own risk, but in India we have not, we had a very safe nuclear journey till now. So I'm sure that that will work. Renewable energy, variable renewable energy, or pump storage hydro or hydropower, these are things which as a democracy we have to take care of many things, so sometimes they are slow in implementation. I think the government is doing some work on that, has already started reducing the time that is required for hydropower projects. Earlier it used to take 4 years to prepare a DPR, now it takes 2 years. So wherever possible, time is being reduced so that we have such type of projects quickly set up in the country. The transmission is a big problem in the country to evacuate the power from solar and wind. Once that problem is resolved, many of the corporates can shift through open access. The policy allows that to renewable energy. In fact, I would say, I think probably Google is setting up a data center in India. I may be wrong. Yeah. And they have entered into an agreement, if I know correctly, with NTPC to supply 2 gigawatt of renewable power. So if big companies start directly buying power from these renewable energy companies, the DISCOM will also be saved, in the sense that the companies will also be saved, that they will get the money in time. So I think it's a win-win for all. It's just about some of the policies needs to be streamlined and things can happen.
Thank you. I think that's a powerful thought. I'm going to come back to you, Sapna ma'am, Rohan-san, on the conversation on circularity. And based on what we spoke, one of the things that bothers me is the ability to adopt circularity practices at scale, right? Which is, how can I reduce, refuse, recycle at scale, especially in an industrial environment. And in a consumer environment, we try what we try. But the big impact comes when you're able to create circularity in a larger industrial environment. If you look at alternative materials and so on. What have been your experience, maybe Sapna with you, what has been your experience in a corporate like yourself, thinking about circularity embedded within product design or service delivery design?
Thank you, Ganesh. Ganesh, I'll attempt that from 2 sides, right? Now, you know, when you design a rail system, it's actually a system that you use over 30 to 40 years. So really, are the best circularity advantages at only designing for like end of life, or is it actually making your daily operations more intelligent, right? So I think our experience has been that if you can embed circularity more at an operational level, I think scaling that is potentially going to be quicker. Right now, I'm talking things like, and let's come back, I think, to the subject at hand. AI, right? Like for an industrial company like ours, where we are deploying it massively is actually at an operational level in terms of bringing advantages to customers, right? Whether that's predictive maintenance, replacing components rather than at fixed schedules and all of that. But if AI models actually throw up replacements quickly, you're actually reducing material consumption, right? Because you can maybe repair it quicker if you have a model that throws up a problem rather than replacing it completely at a certain interval. So material consumption reduces, emissions reduce, right? And that, like those daily advantages actually compound massively when your asset life is about 30 to 40 years, right? So all of the things in terms of material traceability, yes, they will improve supply chains, but it's going to take time for an industry like ours. Likewise, I think, Vishaka spoke about data. I think we are massively trying to get hold of life cycle data. And for us, once we hand over the asset to the operator, a lot of the data needs to come to us, from the operator of the system, right? Because we've just built the system. The operational data has the key that actually will kind of influence massive decisions on reuse, on recyclability, and end of life. Really, so, from our perspective, Ganesh, if we can just make everyday operations intelligent, I think that's where your massive circular gains can come in on long asset life
Got it.
systems.
Got
Yeah? And that's where I think as a company, that's where we are trying to massively focus on. Not to say the others aren't important, they are.
Got it. Rohan-san, you.
Yeah. So let me try to answer it because it's an AI conference. So how we responsibly use AI, and of course cut out use cases where we can have circularity, and then what ma'am just spoke about. So in our organization, we've kind of our AI governance is based on 3 core principles. I don't know. I hope I pronounce it correctly. It's So Shin Wa. So it's an abbreviation from Sonjen, which means dignity. Shinrai means trust, and Chowa means harmony. So all the AI models, platforms, products, bots, whatever we have in-house are based on these 3 core principles of dignity, trust, and harmony. When I say dignity, we don't want to build any platform which manipulates human behavior. We want to use AI as a tool which creatively helps our own employees, our customers, and all the stakeholders. When I talk about trust, I should be able to trust the model which I'm using in terms of transparency, dependability, and explainability. So whatever output is coming out of the models or the platforms which I'm using should be trustworthy. And when I say harmony, it should be aligned with the business goals of the organization. It should not be that I'm doing something else and my company's goals are very different. Secondly, it should be aligned with the goals of the society as well. So that is why harmony is very important. Just to give you an example, we deal with a lot of customer information because a lot of customers interact with us, and then we have also built AI models to predict which customer is the hot customer, which customer is more probable to buy my car. So if customer is queried for airbags, I have to provide the correct information. If he's asking for 2 airbags or 6, if the car has 6, I have to say 6. If I'm giving incorrect information about the airbags, powertrain incorrect information, whether the car is available in diesel or petrol, customer is trusting the model. Customer is not even aware who is interacting with the customer. So the accuracy of data, when I said dignity, trust, and harmony all combined, actually helps us accelerate the path to innovation and what we are trying to achieve together to have a sustainable environment where not only we sell more cars, but in a sustainable way. We produce in a more sustainable way, and we take care of our employees in a more sustainable way to have a cleaner, greener, better future for all of us. That's it.
Fascinating.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. We're close to top of the hour. I'm going to throw it to our two founders. Based on this conversation, based on your own experience, I have two questions for two of you, and maybe starting with you, Vineet. One is, in your journey as an innovator fighting in the, I use the word fighting nicely, in the decarbonization, circularity spaces, you spoke a little bit about how AI has helped you. In an ideal world, what would you like to see? What would you like to see in your journey? What would you like to see in the form of any form of adaptation, mitigation, migration in the environment you work with, which could be your customers, your partners, the interoperability you might aspire to? What would you want to see?
Thank you so much. So, coming back to AI, all of my peers have spoken a lot about AI. We're a company, we're just starting off. And for as far as I understand, in the industrial operations, AI is not possibly helping us a lot right now. But using some tracking mechanism other than the RFID chips, which is RFID tags, which could be a little more smoother for us, we could actually have operations which can be streamlined and smoothened for us to actually deliver to our customers also, because we are a B2B organization and trust is something that is required by most of the customers that we deal with. Some sort of tracking solution using an AI tool could help us a lot. Apart from that, predictive AI in terms of creating hotspots as to where the end-of-life solar panels could. We have a predictive model where actually install smaller facilities in the first leg of the process to a bigger unit actually recycling process of it. How AI could also help us, because for my industry specifically, we deal with a lot of metals. So how the pricing of metals and trends of the metals are actually shaping in or in gonna come. Already we recently saw with silver going up and down in 3 weeks. What is the best time to sell these metals out, and where to get the best optimal value that we recycle? Apart from that, something that else mentioned as well, that you also need to generate income from what our company has been doing apart from this. So, I mean, that is something that could be.
Thanks so much. By the way, silver's Abhishek.
Yeah. I'm in the industry for last 2 years, and I've seen change organizations. Like he has already mentioned about RFID tags. So we initially use RFID cards, installing it at every household to track whether we are able to or not. And every RFID identity and it's unique, so it helps us in identify each and every devices picked up or not. And later we realized we actually replace those RFID cards with tried, and it was successful. So the way technology and AI come, the models which we are able to know, is very interesting. So what I see difference. First, I think very soon we'll start optimizing algorithms. So though there is but I think consumption is the same time is going to increase using D or other engines. I believe there is going to be a lot of optimization. Number two, in my specifically, to see one of us, be it a manufacturer, be it a consumer, be it a recycler, with the help of AI, we can send, stage whatever in our hand, go and so for example, if I am a consumer, with the what would be the right way I can recycle, I should send it, what kind of effort I should make so that I become a responsible citizen. For got let's suppose today we have generated 10 plastic, and at the same time we are able to 10 tons of plastic. At the end, we are able to not only but with the economy also. So likewise for all, every stakeholder, AI as a tool which is everybody, helping everybody in right things, creating things, moving things toward the with the help of AI, able to use and one very and yeah, yes. So I'll just quickly wrap up. So if we reliance on virgin material will significantly reduce, and this is not only which something which we can afford. The very soon there is we are not going to we are not in a position to afford it. It is not going to be an option. We had to do it. So hopefully AI is going to help us in that way.
Perfect. Thank you
so much,
much.
Abhishek.
Thank you, Abhishek. And we have a huge round of applause for our panelists. So on that note, we have the nodal officers from the India AI mission who are here to facilitate the speakers. So one by one, we can go first with Abhishek. Richa, please. Can we have a huge round of applause, guys? Thank you so much. Vishaka ma'am as well. Yes. Thank you. Sapna ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining. Thank you. And for our moderator, sir, as well. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this session. Thank you.